I think that one of the reasons why philosophers oftentimes seem so dull is because we aren't really in the frame of mind that the philosopher was in when when they recorded their musings, when they had their musings. And I can't remember who the philosopher was who described it, but one philosopher described the life of mankind, the life of a person, as somebody whose tower is constantly being barraged, and the person is basically is rebuilding the tower throughout the barrage. And that never really appealed to me per se, and I believe that the reason why it never appealed to me was because I couldn't relate. But yet, I was listening to a discussion that someone was having, and it's irrelevant as to what they were discussing because it didn't inspire my thoughts, but the person mentioned the good life as a philosophical topic. And when the person mentioned the good life, it occurred to me that the good life involves suffering. Not as a matter of necessity, but simply because we don't know what a life would be like without suffering. If somebody has lived the good life, they have lived a life that has involved suffering. Not necessarily, but because that's the only thing that we know about. And it occurred to me that looking forward at the day that I die, the day that I am dying, the day that I am in the process of dying, I will have lived 80 plus or minus 20 years of running away from suffering. Not that that's a bad thing. We should run away from suffering. We should not have any more suffering than is necessary. We should not want to have more suffering, I should say. So that was somewhat frightening to me. And I think that that's sort of the state of mind that you have to be in to appreciate the philosopher's discussion of, like, that's the reason why philosophy is born, because we aren't in that state of mind where we're, I guess, a little bit afraid, because, I was suddenly looking forward to a life of running away from suffering, and that is sort of the benefit of a life of mindfulness. So if we were to take the philosopher seriously, who says that a lifetime of constantly rebuilding a tower that's under barrage is not a good thing, if we were to take that seriously and take their advice, I suppose we have to have simply reached that point where we are open to that kind of criticism of a life of mindless living, a life of simply allowing our reflexes and our emotions and our striatal emotional systems to guide us in what we do. So I don't know what kind of advice I would give to somebody, except to say, take seriously the criticism of living a mindless life, of living an unreflective life. take seriously the advice of someone who says that meditation and mindfulness practices are a good thing. Take that advice seriously, even if you don't necessarily understand where they're coming from, or at the very least, if you don't follow their advice, at the very least, look into that person's advice. Why are they coming to that conclusion? Because the thought of going through the rest of my life running away rather than living reflectively, it seems so meaningless. Like the only thing that I'm doing is laying one brick on top of another when a cannonball is on its way and it's going to knock that brick straight over.